Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I'm here to answer a question which has proven to be quite divisive every time I've seen it come up. That question is about dinosaurs in popular culture.
Dinosaurs are everywhere in pop culture, and why shouldn't they be? These are creatures which spark the imagination, flesh and blood dragons, creatures which bring with them a sense of mystery and wonder like no other life forms on Earth can do.
However, if the examples in my background are any indication, pop culture has a tendency to portray dinosaurs as less than scientifically accurate.
Most movies, books, games, and comics that feature dinosaurs tend to portray them as monsters rather than animals, which has led to a lot of inaccuracies being disseminated to the public. From outdated concepts like bat-winged pteranodons to blatant falsehoods like Dilophosaur venom, inaccurate depictions of prehistoric life run rampant throughout the miasma, and some people get really put off by it. Back in 2015, for example, there was a vocal outcry for the dinosaurs of Jurassic World to be updated so as to conform to more recent discoveries, the reasoning being that the Jurassic Park franchise is and always has been the most scientifically accurate depiction of dinosaurs in cinema.
In response to that, I'm going to play this clip and remind those people of a little tidbit the first movie put forth about Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Don't move. Can't see us if we don't move.
Mwah! Scientific accuracy at its finest, except for the fact that it's utter bunk.
More recently, I wound up reigniting this debate purely by accident when I reviewed Steve Alten's Meg, since the book's central monster, the Megalodon, was deliberately portrayed with wild inaccuracies to make it more menacing.
This has got me wondering how important it really is for prehistoric life to be portrayed with scientific accuracy in pop culture.
It cannot be denied that art has a huge influence on public perception. This especially applies to dinosaurs and their kin. To quote the opening narration of the trailer compilation video Fantastic Dinosaurs of the Movies, for most of us, what we know about dinosaurs, we pick up from the movies.
It can therefore be argued that a certain level of responsibility lies with the artist to stick with the facts. If you're going to include a dinosaur, the least you can do is portray it accurately, or else why bother using it at all? If scientific accuracy means so little to you, why not throw out the dinosaur and come up with a brand new monster of your own creation?
It's not as though this perception exists in a vacuum, mind you. There is a precedent for inaccurate depictions of animals in fiction having negative impacts on said animals in real life. For example, Herman Melville's Moby Dick is still cited by environmentalists as popularizing the idea that whales are ship-sinking monsters, thereby justifying the hunting and killing of them.
Now, one could counter-argue this by saying Moby Dick was a flop upon its initial release, and it was based on a true incident where a whale really did attack a ship, and whaling was a popular industry long before the book was printed anyway, but why split hairs?
Likewise, Peter Benchley is known to have regretted writing Jaws when he learned it was inspiring people to kill sharks indiscriminately. Then again, Benchley can hardly be held responsible for the actions of awful people any more than J.D. Salinger can.
Well, either way, both examples demonstrate how an inaccurate depiction of an animal in fiction can have adverse effects on that species in real life. However, this particular argument doesn't quite apply the same way to dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are extinct.
That's right. Unless those Mokele Mbembe sightings in the Congo are ever confirmed, we must determine that there are currently no dinosaurs to be harmed by inaccurate depictions because they are all dead, and humans had nothing to do with it. But is that an excuse? After all, science is how we understand the world around us, and discarding one branch just because fantasy is cooler than fact might set us down a slippery slope.
I myself have gone on record in the past saying I'm not a big fan of movies that are based on a true story because they have a tendency to twist the facts around, either for dramatic effect or to push some kind of socio-political agenda.
Hence, the discarding of that which we know is undeniable fact could be viewed as heinous whatever the subject matter, whether it directly applies to the modern world or not.
Personally, though, I feel that if you're making a work of fiction and you're going to include dinosaurs in it, you may as well not put that much emphasis on scientific accuracy anyway, and just depict them however works best for the story. How can I justify such a thing? because the scientific facts about dinosaurs which we know today are the outdated concepts of tomorrow.
When it comes to movies about human history, the facts are recorded and irrefutable, meaning the changing of them can be very hard to justify. On the other hand, what we know about dinosaurs is constantly in flux. Iguanodon was originally a quadruped with a nasal horn, then it was a biped with dual thumb spikes, and now it's a quadruped again with the thumb spikes, though it could go bipedal in a pinch. Tyrannosaurus originally had scaly skin, but the moment evidence turned up that it had feathers, suddenly it became the world's largest parrot, but now that evidence is being called into question because it might not have had feathers after all, or not been completely covered, or only had them up to a certain age, maybe? Dinosaurs may have been killed by an asteroid, or by a plague, or by the Ice Age, or they didn't actually die and evolved into birds.
Basically, whenever I hear a paleontologist begin a sentence with the words, "we now know," that's how I know to reset my watch.
This constant changing of the facts, which stems from both new discoveries and inability to reach a consensus on those discoveries, has actually taken a hefty toll on prehistoric non-fiction.
Back in 1999, the BBC and the Discovery Channel released the miniseries Walking with Dinosaurs, styled as a nature documentary. At the time, it was billed as the most accurate depiction of prehistoric life ever put to film. Today, it's a work of science fiction.
Quite a bit of what it depicts has since been deemed inaccurate, and some of the content was questionable even for the time of its initial release. For all of the effort and attention to detail, Walking with Dinosaurs was doomed to obsolescence the moment it set out to be the definitive depiction of prehistory. The only thing it's good for now is to serve as a time capsule of what people used to think about dinosaurs. And I remind you, this is something that was intended to be educational.
The primary goal of fiction, however, is not to educate, but to entertain. Combine that with the knowledge that what we know about dinosaurs could easily become outdated at some point, and it almost seems kind of silly to put too much emphasis on scientific accuracy. Let me give you a personal example of what I'm talking about.
My kaiju novel, Operation Red Dragon, is set in 1964 and features multitudes of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures running amok. However, I chose not to describe them. The original monsters of my own creation I describe in great detail, but the dinosaurs are left vague, and that was not an accident. The closest I come to describing the dinosaurs is to say they look very different to what's depicted in museums of the time. The result is that you can envision them any number of ways, as movie monsters, as modern science interprets, or as whatever your imagination can concoct. As a result, I've guaranteed that my dinosaurs will never be outdated, no matter what new discoveries may come.
Ergo, I will say it again. If you're making a piece of fiction with dinosaurs in it, I don't think you need to worry that hard about getting your facts straight when those facts can potentially be rewritten at any moment.
Sure, you ought to get the basics down so your dinosaur is at least recognizable as a dinosaur. But beyond that, who cares if it has feathers or drags its tail? It's a work of fiction after all. If it looks cool and it evokes the proper emotion from the audience, then all else is gravy. If being entertaining means fudging the details a bit, I'd call that a small price to pay for a good piece of dinosaur fiction.
Besides which, we live in the internet age. If you can't take 5 minutes to hop on Google and look up whether or not velociraptors really were 6 feet tall, that's entirely on you. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer, signing off. Now, of course, if the whole point of the fiction you're making is to portray dinosaurs as scientifically accurate for what we know, then by all means, do your homework. Just be prepared for it to not age very well.